Impressionne. Ça sent réel.
Did two men with a trunk get off here by any chance?
Oui?
Which way did they go?
That way, monsieur.
Oh, where are we anyway?
Guise. France. Let me help you, monsieur. There is a taxi at front, and a hotel nearby in Rennes-le-Château.
Appreciate it.
All right, so we are going to begin day 3. Grace wakes up. Gabe is in the bed. If you watched the previous one, you know that it would appear that Grace and Gabe finally expressed their desire for one another in a very physical way. It does cut to black, so you don't see anything, but it is pretty much assumed because you'll see some conversation and stuff like that. And by the way, I don't know if Grace has been on her trip for a long time, but I noticed Grace has a pair of jeans with a nice tear on the rear end. Kind of sexy, but clearly this is an indication that she's down to the last bits of her laundry, because normally I could not imagine Grace wearing any kind of pants that would have like a tear in the rear end like that. Grace is too civilized for that kind of clothing. So I just thought that was funny. Or she could be she could be wearing Gabe's pants. Alright. So we're gonna make our way around. It is a new day, see if anything has changed. Walk around to all the usual places. Talk to all the usual people that are available. And as I did mention, the tour guide talks about one of the postcards of the tomb. And when you come here, you can actually get 3 postcards in total. So I kept spinning it around until it finally said no more. And there are 3 that you will end up scanning into Sydney, which is going to find some more diagrams on these random paintings, which you'll use to figure out more of what's going on with the Templars, the Scion, the Blood of Christ, and all that fun stuff. So we've got the postcards, but first we're just going to take a drive around, see if anyone is around. This segment, you might notice it's kind of blurring kind of fast. It was probably like an hour and a half, so I kind of sped it up further to be about 45 minutes. It may be less than that by the time I'm done. If there's dead air, I'll probably speed up those sections a little more. But so if you're wondering, this is moving really fast, like there's a lot of blur, that's why it is actually sped up quite considerably. This puzzle was a little frustrating. So one of the first things I snuck into Mosley's room because I have his key. The first thing I did was click on the pile of clothes on the floor, and it said, no, I want to look around more. Well, the thing is, you have to look at everything else in the room. Then you can look at the pile of clothes, and she'll go, oh, I guess so. So that was that's a little misleading. Also, that you don't just look there and get what you want. So there is a few kind of gotchas in Gabriel Knight. So now we have found the 6-pointed star, so we now have a new symbol. And we found some more paragon symbols, and that should look somewhat familiar with the line and everything like that. We got some translations to go, and we had the sum, which we translated. So then when you translate, it'll update the text. Here we are with Sydney again, trying to figure out more things. So we're going to find a line there. Let's keep on moving. And this is what I mean. See, so I came back and you have to look at everything else, look under the bed. We've already checked the jacket. She finally looks at the pile of clothes, even though that was the first thing I clicked on. So now you have Mosley's, whatever you want to call it, the gyrometer thingy. So, and we'll use that to try to pinpoint a few things that are mentioned in Le Sapin Rouge. So we're going to look at the rocks, and she'll say, oh, hey, those rocks look familiar. And if you go inside, there's a note. So someone is giving Grace clues. It should already be clear that it's Emilio, because he's the one who wrote some and stuff like that. So now she's compared the rocks, and so she knows that somewhere around here, the postcard talks about a center. So we need to find the center, which I was literally just walking around until it told me I found it. You can just see me frantically clicking around. This does take a few minutes, but yeah. If I remember correctly, it ends up pretty much being right in front of the cave. I'm like way off, just walking everywhere. Let's try the near the front of the cave. Oh, there it is, right in front of the cave. So then Grace goes and gets her shovel and digs, and nothing. That's gonna happen to a few times to poor Grace. So again, here's the tires. You can look at it, and she says Gabe should look into this. We're gonna go ahead and leave. Now we see, I think, is it Madeline? I can't remember her name. I think it's Madeline, but it's the tour. guide woman, and she's digging in the same spot that Mosley was. And she pretty much says, hey, if you see your friend, he better not have found anything, because those two are clearly working together. And nothing ever comes of that chicken, other than when you talk to, I believe her name is Sophia, the female who works the night shift at the hotel. She talks about how her mom plans on catching that chicken because it's terrorizing her. Yes, back to Sydney. I zoomed in this time because this is going to help us figure out La Sapin Rouge, which is what we're going to do next, and try to figure out piece by piece the whole thing. So we're looking at different churches, different things that the manual mentions. It is funny that I talked about earlier about how versatile this thing was, Sydney, how they had put a bunch of information, but some of the very saints and stuff like that are mentioned in the church are not mentioned in Sydney, which I guess could be since Sydney is for the Schottenegers. Just thought it was something that they could have just put something in there to talk about it since they are mentioned in the church. But there is, like I said, a metric ton of information in Sydney that you can just keep going down a rabbit hole. All right, so now I'm going to try to find out the next part to the Sydney puzzle. I'm going to try to enter in a few more points, because if we do the thing that Wilkes found, you can start figuring out shapes. Now we have a similar shape to what we saw earlier, and if you turn it, bang. So Gabe wakes up after that, and there's clear discomfort between the two, and they're in their conversation very uncomfortable talking to each other. Mosey gets a look at the lineage, and you can see he looks kind of sly right there. That lineage book is about to disappear, and it's going to be very clear who's taking it, because you'll see him walking with basically what looks like a towel. And when you go over here, you find out that the maid says, hey, Wilkes, he's not come back. Like his bed is unmade, like something happened with Will. Something happened with Wilkes. Sorry, the reason I laughed is there's a conversation tree with this quote-unquote attractive nurse, or nurse, what am I saying? Maid, sorry. Too many fantasies are intermingling. But one of the options that you talk to her about is, I think it's bondage. And Gabe is actually the one who comments on it, like, yeah, still into that, are we? I just thought that was pretty funny. All right. Anyway, so we're in Wilkes' room trying to piece together what it is that happened to Wilkes, why he disappeared, what is going on. The windows are open, which is very indicative of the dream that Gabe had of the vampires, since it is on a second story. If the person gained entrance through the window, they either used a ladder to get up there, or they just floated up there like the vampires that Gabe saw in his dream that came for Grace. And so when you ask around with Wilkes, no one has seen him. There is concern. Some think he might have drank somewhere and just passed out. Well, he drank something, or someone drank something of his, primarily his blood. It's just a matter of finding it. So now we're just going to drive around, now that we know Wilkes is missing. Hey, there is a moped here. And it's his. And Emilio, when you talk to him, he says, I'm just meditating, and he's looking at the tomb, because the tomb is directly across. So Emilio is very mysterious. He has no fingerprints, and I keep alluding to that, and you'll find out why later. So he tries to shut the door on you because he's upset that Gabe dug up the lineage thing. And so Gabe will ask him about vampires and stuff like that. Ask him about the lineage of the infant. So got a lot of information out of this guy, and we're going to head on out. Keep looking. No motorcycles or no mopeds, so we're just going to keep looking. However, this time, if you look closely right at the base of that thing, now you're not able to go up there until you figure out how to click these footprints, and that was frustrating because you can see how the tile on those look different. And basically you have to find out their footprints, and you find a note on him. His throat has been slit, all too familiar, just like the two guards, just like the unicorn, and oh, there's a pool of blood. So if Gabe looks at it, yeah, definitely looks like Wilkes met the same end as those other guys. Which is a bummer. Like I said, I actually enjoyed, despite his chauvinistic pig behavior, he was a... Oh, so you just saw her leave Mosley's with a towel. Oh, here's the the bondage tree, if I remember correctly. Gabe says he's not into... I was tempted to try to drink one of those, but I was pretty sure it was going to kill me. But we just saw Madeline, I think her name is. We just saw her leave Mosley's apartment. She's holding a towel. And like I said, we saw Mosley giving that lineage book an eye. So Gabe is about to find out that the lineage book is gone. And that is because Mosley took it. And I believe her name is Madeline. Just call her that, the tour guide lady. She takes it from Mosley because she plays Mosley, and then someone will end up taking it from her. And you will see them each time basically walking around with this towel in their arms, indicating that's what they're hiding. And so go over, talk to Grace, find out about all the things that she's uncovered and all the things that Gabe has uncovered. And they're truly making progress. Where Gabe is focused on trying to find the infant, Grace is interested on figuring out the Le Serpent Rouge and the idea that there is some kind of Templar treasure, blood of Christ thing. So now we are switched over to Grace, and we the time has shifted. So now see. Now we just see him moving, and he is holding the towel thing. So it essentially went from Mosley to Madeline to him. What's his name? Buccelli. So that will come into play. You'll have to actually say who did what and in what order. And you get to overhear these two wonderful ladies who are now desperate to find the treasure, but they're starting to worry that the information they got is incorrect. So they're so distressed they really don't want to talk to Grace, and Madeline doesn't really want to talk to Grace either. Oh, looks like there is a gap in the thing here. I'll need to cut that out. But we're back on Sydney now. Cruising along, trying to figure it out. I will probably speed this through if it takes too long, because I spent way too much time trying to figure this out. And that river in the north is Les Serpents, which leads right to the winery. So now we know the father of the infant is here, and Gabe will be heading into that house pretty soon. Oh, and see, you can see a few new opened areas, huh? So we're gonna walk around, figure some stuff out. There is a like a handkerchief. You can tell that wall has to move. It's just a matter of how. We're gonna keep moving along. And Grace tried that path to the north where Gabe fails to keep going. When you go as Grace, there is a note pinned to the tree, which is another clue that someone is just giving. And there will be a site to dig there in a moment. Spoiler alert, Grace isn't going to find anything. So when you get here, there's another note. But you can't really get anywhere because it's all fenced off. So we need to find another way around. So if we go back up here, there is another center point, which I just walk around until I found it, put an X, click on it, and Grace will say, let me go get my shovel, come right back and dig, and say, yeah, now there's nothing. It's like pure rock. So gonna check out the binoculars, see if we spy anything. Essentially doing the same thing I do with Gabe, where I just spin until I see anything that says I can zoom. Then I zoom and see if there's actually anything there worth seeing. So in this case, there's pretty much nothing that's immediately visible, but and I was struggling to get down from there. I had to change the camera view. We did spot someone's moped when we were looking through the binoculars. And there was a place called the Orange Rock that became unlocked. If we look, to me that looked like a rock, so that was a little misleading as to what I need to do, but apparently it's just sand. And when you dig it up, you actually find the lineage book. So now we're going to get a number of fingerprints from people who actually touched it. So there are the 3 fingerprints, and it's going to be the 3 people that I already told you. Mosley, Madeline, and I believe his name is Buccelli. Or Buccelli. These 2 are amazing, as always. Lady, what's her name, has, is it Estelle? I think it's Estelle, doing all the digging as she sits there and just lays down. Now notice there is that water bottle. At first it looked like a camera when I first looked at it, but it's a water bottle. Notice that it's there because you will come back and you can get fingerprints off of it if you haven't already got their fingerprints. So now you go back into the hotel, and the father of the infant who had hired Gabe is there, and he says, hey, when you see Gabe, tell him to come see me. It's so funny that you can just do the analyze thing and tells you whose fingerprint it is. And it just attaches it. So the gigameter thing basically says it's right here. And Grace just moves one rock and they all fall. But there's another note. So all these notes are things to basically look up in Sydney that'll give you more clues as to what to do. Now remember how in the other commentary I was talking about how Emilio, he walks around with his hand in his pocket, and he's also the one that we can't seem to get a fingerprint on. Those things are connected. So now the time has moved. I just realized I failed to do a zoom in on the time. And so Gabe is making the acquisitions about who stole the lineage paperwork. And this is where everything comes out. So Madeline is working for the European government. Mosley reveals that he's working for the CIA. And Pacello is working for some religious organization about everything. Now, what's interesting is he only called in these three, assuming because they are the accomplices. Like, he doesn't call in Lady, whatever her name is, and Estelle. We know Wilkes is dead. Emilio is also not here. So we already know that Gabe pretty much knew who did it, just had to figure out the right order. And when she flirts with Gabe, Grace doesn't take it well. Especially since they just recently slept together. So before we go see, I believe he's a prince. Before we go see him, we're just going to scan around, see if there's anything that we need to see before we trigger that. Okay, nothing seems to be there. And that's the guy who lives up in the cabin. So the one who you took the lineage from that he buried. I should have really wrote down all the characters' names so I could have had that handy as I was doing the commentary, because there are so many characters in this game. And it had already been, I think, like a week. So all of that information is gone out of my brain because there is very, very limited space left in my old brain to remember things. And when you talk to him, you ask him about if he's met these guys, and he declines it. And then Gabe calls him out for meeting some of the guys, and he gets kind of upset about being called out. So now we're going to go here. There's a guy whom we took the lineage stuff for. And thankfully, Gabe has recovered and says, hey, my bad, you can have it back. And they start talking about the child. They start talking about the treasure, the Templars, the Scion, what it means about the grape line or the grapevine, you know, like the way they breed grapes and stuff like that, the purity of it. And so this other guy is going to go ahead and go with you. When you go after the... now, if you look, there's a water bottle. But when you go after the guys who have taken the child. So there's fingerprint. And I think this is one of my favorites where she's just laying down snoring while I believe it's Estelle. It's just digging away, and Estelle is like so sympathetic of, oh, you know, she came from money, you know, she's distraught that we've not found it yet. It's so good. So we talked to Grace about some of the things we found. She shares some of the information she's found on the Sydney computer. That's his name, Larry Sinclair. Alright, so now Gabe is finally able to climb over the fence, and this is where he basically says, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm about to leave. I want to finish up this article and write up more, because he suspects something is up with this guy, and how he has something to do with the abduction of the infant based on all these things that are pointing. And so they go to a wine cellar, and he drops it. Gabe cuts himself. And this guy drinks it as it drips into, Gabe's blood dripped into the wine, and he just drinks it. So you go inside here, turn on the light, and I was sure that you're supposed to do something with the tire tracks here because the car is hidden. And maybe you are, maybe I just missed it, but I was trying. But you end up looking at the bats, and this will trigger a cutscene where, sure enough, it's those vampires who are now chasing Gabe. It's now 3 to, I think it said 9. So now we are back to being Grace after that brief stint as Gabe. You can talk to Estelle about a few things, and she agrees to show Grace some photos and talks about each of the photos, and Grace was like, hey, can you just let me look at it? And that's like the doctor who gave them the information. And there is a item that Grace just put in her pocket. It's a circular item that has 2 prongs. And basically, it's what the vampire bite thing is marked. And so this is an email that you get back in regards to the symbol that you sent. There's the photo. And it'll come into play. You'll see how it's used and stuff like that. So just moving through the rooms, trying to see if there's anything to do. Once again, another floating drink. The Rennes le Chateau is haunted by paranormal, and now we see this guy leaving. So let's tail him and see what is going on. Now remember, previously I talked about how Grace does kind of the same thing that Gabriel does. This guy bows to him and talks about his holiness. So this guy clearly has a much larger secret. And see how Grace doesn't even move? Gabe moved around the other side of the tomb as they were coming. Grace did not. Grace just sat there like, So if you follow him to his room, you can talk to him and confront him about what you just saw. And this is a long, long cutscene that I can't even begin to explain it, but it's basically the lineage of Christ and how these guys came to be with the Templars, the Scions, and the son of Jesus, and Magdalene, and the guy who was so devoted to him who couldn't let Jesus be crucified, so he drank his blood and got betrayed, and all this stuff that Jesus is upset that he drank the blood and said, you didn't let me do what I was meant to do. And this guy who's super angry and wants the power of the chosen one / Jesus, and he gets called out by his brother and exiled. It's a long story that I can't even begin to explain in full detail. I'd highly recommend playing. You could play it and still see it, but watching my normal playthrough, and if you want the whole story, it's all there. But it's actually really good and really well done. I am sure if someone is of religious faith, they may not be as happy with it, indicating that perhaps that Jesus had children and stuff like that. So, but I thought it was well done and very tasteful. And so now they've gathered, talking about they have to do something. Grace talks about this hole that she found, and Gabe's like, I got it. And so he slides down. So the first thing I did is when I looked at this, I I assume because it's Gabriel Knight that you have to move in knight positions and eventually land on all the swords. What I didn't know the first time playing it is I just thought, don't land on one of the skulls and you're okay. Like, if you land on one of the black tiles that doesn't have a sword on it, you're fine. And overall, that's the case. But the tile only lasts once. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure if you land, I don't think I ever tested it, but I never landed on any of the death tiles. But see how I just jumped off that tile? Now it's gone. So I figured you have to do all the night moves, and I thought I pretty much already messed up by this point because I didn't realize the tiles will drop. So I've already lost 2 tiles, and you can see my mouse frantically moving in the order of how a knight would move across a chessboard table. And in hindsight, it's probably more in relation to not so much Gabriel Knight, but the Knight Templars, which makes way more sense. Because they probably would have not known that Gabe was coming here to jump on these swords and perish. I thought I had it. So what I ended up doing is I took a screenshot of that, and I actually saved and basically wrote down all the knight moves and every variation that I could find. And I don't know if there's more than one way to do it, which is why I'm saving. But this took a while to figure out that you can only land on tiles once. But being able to screenshot that screen first, and then basically just writing down like move 1, move 2, move 3, really helped. I would not have been able to do this without writing it down. There's no way. And so one of the cool things, like I said, I should have mentioned, during these puzzles you can talk to Grace. And so you will see me die. I don't know if I can't remember if I put them all. But I think I died probably well over 30 times on the pendulum. And I eventually figured out that there's a timing thing. You have to time it where the hand is available to grab at the top. And when you do, you can actually grab the thing and swing down and then drop here. So you call Grace and she says, oh, it's the essence of life. So which is like I think it's the apple for the blue apple, and the egg, which is birth and stuff like that. And then he goes on to speak more. And essentially he reveals that he scrubbed away his own fingerprints eventually. And that's why every time we tried to do anything, we couldn't find it. And you find out he is thousands of years old. And that's why that guy that we saw him in the graveyard with Grace bows to him, because he is actually a holy person. And it's pretty interesting because he talks about how he couldn't do anything. So in this puzzle, you have to, unless you know what language that's in, you reach out to Grace to find out what to do. Now this one was kind of tricky because I picked up, 50-50 chance. I picked up one of the gloves, tried to click on the fire thing, nothing happened. So I'm clicking on everything else, trying to see if I need to do something. And what you have to do is shift the camera above those things in order to click it. There you go. And then so you put the glove back, and then you have a choice between what looks to be an angel and what looks to be a demon. And in the book, it talks about Asmodeus was the guardian. So I selected the demon, seemed to go right. And this part, this was pretty much like a lucky guess. Like, they both kind of show the same thing. When you step on it, it just looks like Gabe is old. So, and then the other one shows that Gabe is young. So, I guess we all age. So we need to figure out what to press. That opens up that. And now there is a bridge over there. It seems pretty logical, but there's also what you can see is clearly another bridge, but there's nothing there. So good old Indiana Jones style, I believe it was, you just use a leap of faith. And I died a lot because the floor tiles disappear on you. So, like I said, you don't die in Gabriel Knight until you reach the very end, and then death is just everywhere. I'm so close. I got it. I got it. Yeah. And everyone else makes it effortlessly. And then the vampires show up, and they break out their swords and guns, and you go through. Here's the winery guy, and this took me a few tries, because what I was trying to do was go into the inventory to use the medallion, and it took me a few tries that I see that when I clicked on the inventory, see I'm in the inventory and it's not there, but when I go to right click, it's the medallion's already there. So again, dying quite a few times, and then you slice his throat after you use the medallion. His throat gets slit. Come down, get the child. He takes it, and there is a tomb there, and they say open it, and Gabe sees a vision, and it looks like he is the one who perhaps put the nail to Christ and said, hey, Christ said, give me your dagger and I'll bless it. And that's the dagger that he uses as a part of the shot dagger. So Grace looks at that picture that's been on Sydney and gets a flash also. Emilio takes this glowing body, and Mosey says, hey, was that? And Gabe says, don't even ask. Don't even say it. So could be that indeed it was the body of Christ. Gabe goes back because he wants to choose Grace and finds a note that she is left to go to the land of the monks, the Schottnager monks. And that is the end of my commentary of Gabriel Knight. Whew, that is a lot of talking and a lot of Sydney. Hopefully you enjoyed the commentary. I highly recommend playing Gabriel Knight 3. It is an amazing game. So we see at the end, the unicorn is free. And that, my friends, is the end. Unfortunately, there is never a Gabriel Knight 4. Alright, well, see you in the Black Cauldron soon.